doing? Welcome to another episode of Better You Life Coaching. I'm your host, Dre, and today we're going to be wrapping up our Rebuilding Black America series. So, if you've been following along all the way through, we started with a few objectives. First was restoring the family, which meant, in my opinion, largely getting fathers back involved and consummating unions. The next part was changing our mind state, placing value on each other, on black bodies, on black money, acknowledging the effects that frankly existed in a country where you've been seen as less than, where you were literally property at one point in time, and acknowledging those after effects and how it might shape biases even in black folks unconsciously that we are not so readily aware of. And then third, you had building the actual infrastructure of the community, building businesses, building that social infrastructure, becoming essentially an economic asset to the nation. And with all that being said, I know you're probably thinking, what's next? All of that doesn't matter if you can't protect it. And when I say protection, it's going to take a few different forms. And what probably comes to the mind first and foremost is physical protection. And here's once again where the professional class is going to be very pivotal. I live in America, and most Americans are out of shape, overweight, obese. And I feel we need professionals, i.e. black doctors and nurses, and nutritionists, especially nutritionists, that can keep the whole of the population healthy. If your body is racked and riddled with disease and illness and a malformity, you aren't a threat to anything, to anybody, and you damn sure can't build anything. But I would say also it goes back to part of my idea in the last with the physical education. I feel that I feel that every black citizen that their household should have at least a firearm, which they are fully competent and knowledgeable and know how to wield. And I feel that everybody should be, at least of a particular age, should be in decent enough physical shape that they can handle themselves. And we need to prize physical fitness and aptitude a lot more as a people and community, because a lot of health ailments such as hypertension, such as diabetes, heart disease, these are things that largely we can reverse with proper nutrition. We can significantly curb it with a healthy lifestyle and healthy lifestyle changes. So that's the first piece. We have to be in physical shape to be able to actually defend any physical threat. Another thing that I think really needs to happen is neighborhood militias. I think in terms of community and what has historically happened, thinking of places such as Tulsa, Greenwood, and so many others, is not The problem isn't that we've never built. We've built in spite of, as a matter of fact. It's that we didn't necessarily have the means in place to dissuade those from coming and destroying. And we were a city with no walls, so to speak. And I feel that neighborhood militias are something that, one, you have a certain level of organization, so that if a mob of guys with guns show up, cool, let's line it up. You ain't coming over here and just burning my stuff down without a fucking fight. But two, and this is probably the more practical application in today's day and time, especially depending on where you live, a neighborhood militia could serve as a supplement to first responders. Resources don't get equally allocated in a lot of places. A good example where I live down the street from the Masters course. That is the Masters, the big tournament that takes place in April. But there are people in South Augusta, when we had a snowstorm, for instance, or we had a big hurricane come through and power gets knocked out, or certain things are unavailable, a lot of times my power's back on like that within 20 to 30 minutes. And that's in part due to my proximity to where that course in this town is king. Everything has to be up and operational, and if something affects that, it's going to get remedied. Conversely, my brothers and sisters that stay on the south side, I remember there was one time there was a storm that came through, and there were some folks that were without power for over a week. And having some type of community organization that can respond to such things and, provide some level of relief and action, as well as a rudimentary peacekeeping, I think that's very valuable. I mean, it's no secret that they don't, in terms of America's priorities, we don't rank the highest at the moment. But the second and probably the most important aspect of defense is going to involve the professional class, as in lawyers, legislators, and political executives. And what I'm getting at here is this: it's one thing to be able to stop somebody from coming and performing an illegal action, such as a mob coming with torches trying to burn your stuff down. But this is America, and there's one thing that is taught to us time after time after time again, if you pay attention in America, and that is the pen is mightier than the sword. And so many times we want to tune out and disengage from the political aspect, but the political aspect is very vital. You could argue politics is connected to nearly everything in your life, from the air you breathe to the water you drink. And what I'm getting at is this: we need lawyers to make sure that, one, the contracts, the agreements, everything with the law is actually being enforced and followed into a T. And when it's not, we need competent lawyers that can bring forth the suits, hit whoever needs to be hit with them, and win. From the government perspective of legislators and executives, we need people in office who are going to actually advocate for policies that's going to benefit the majority of Black Americans. And if you have senators, mayors, governors, you know, cabinet members, or even the president himself, yeah, they can't do it all on their own. But when you have the political will to do something, I mean, we saw it with the last administration. When you had the political will to do something, a lot of times you can find it. It's just a question of how bad do you want it. And if we get some folks in there that really truly want it, that really truly have the audacity to govern with their morals, and don't really, as a Representative Ocasio-Cortez would say, I'm here to do what's right, and I don't care if I'm a one-term representative. That is the type of gumption and gusto that's needed in the political establishment that represents us. And we have to have their back as well. Whenever we see somebody sticking their neck out like that, we got to make sure that we show up and we got their back, and we're casting our ballots for them, and we're doing everything that we can to make sure that they remain in that seat. Because it's all for naught if we're asking our political class to go out there on a limb for us and we don't show up for them. Like, we're no better than the folks who are trying to perpetrate these things against us if we don't support those who's trying to help us. And then finally, and this once again is going back to professional class, because they're the buttress and the bulwark that's going to support the community as well as defend it. Mental and intellectual defense of our people. And what I'm getting at here is, this is really going to come down to the teachers and the quality of education that we have available in our community. Frankly, a lot of times we get got for a lack of knowledge. There are a lot of scams that get pushed on our folks, and you know, it's not saying that folks are intellectually lacking or anything, but they don't have the knowledge to be able to raise certain flags, certain alarm bells, and because of that, sometimes they can get taken advantage of. And sometimes those very same scams can be back doors into people that want to pilfer the community. And what I'm getting at with the mental and intellectual defense of the community is, one, we have to have educators that make sure that we're all up to snuff, that we all have the adequate base of knowledge to draw upon and act out of wisdom with. But also, we do need to make sure that we are addressing any, this is going to fall to more so the therapists and mental health professionals, but we also need folks in the community that can address those issues that would prevent, or I shouldn't say prevent, but those issues that would affect somebody's ability to learn or cognitively function properly. So a good example of this is like I think it's called, oh god, I forgot it, individual learning plan. It's something that I know is done, and for some students who are special needs, and special needs does not mean that you are, I guess you would say, like a classically, as a word would be used, like retarded or anything. Special needs people, a lot of times they may have certain conditions that prevent them or hinder their success in a typical or I guess traditional classroom environment. And if I'm using some of the wrong terms on that, please charge it to my head, not to my heart. But just trying to get the point across, in saying that there are certain things that can affect people and how they could function, and you have to imagine that those things would carry over after one is out of a school setting and as an adult. And think of how those things would affect somebody if they, say for instance, would never never diagnosed, never addressed. How certain things would affect the person and their ability to, hold down a job, ability to emotionally function and interact with others. But I feel those are really the big pillars. And finally, in summation of everything, as I said at the beginning, this would be something that would be a multi-year plan. Oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot to tie back into that last point as well with the educators. They also will be the ones that would be responsible for, I guess, for lack of a better term, relaying the plan from generation to generation. This would be a collective project. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not something that's going to happen in 5-10 years. And if I'm being honest with myself, if a lot of the efforts and things that I outline were put into practice, I don't think I'll put it like this, I know I wouldn't see the completion of it. I think it would be in my twilight years that I would really be able to look back and see the tangible benefits. But I really truly believe it would be something that our children and our grandchildren would reap the benefits from and see through the completion. But that's it for my series, and let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Peace. Happy Black History Month.